the Pledge of Allegiance, so you can stand up where you're at. If you got a flag nearby, and start with Pledge Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. I'll have Mr. Middlestad, if you could take the roll.
Okay, Mrs. Berkmeyer?
Here.
You're in Chesterfield? I can note where you're at.
Yes, I am in Chesterfield.
Thank you. Mr. Moses? Mr. Moses?
Here and from New Baltimore.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Green?
Present and New Baltimore as well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. DeWitt?
Present, Chesterfield Township.
Ms. Hendershot?
Present, New Baltimore.
Okay, thanks. Mr. DeRue?
President, Madison Heights.
Okay. Mr. Middleton? Present, New Baltimore. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll start tonight's meeting off a little different. It's kind of a throwback to, I know the title caused some confusion, but back last year, and I think some of the prior year, we went to where we're moving the board meetings around to different schools to showcase the schools in the district and to have that principal and a teacher, kind of highlight something that's going on at that particular school, start the board's meetings off with bringing it back to the kids where we're at. So tonight we're going to revert back to that, but with it being COVID, we got to do it virtually. So we're going to start with Ashley Elementary, and Melissa Van Hall is going to give a presentation on a pilot program they started last year. Ms. Van Hall.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for allowing me to present. Tonight, I'm actually presenting on behalf of the elementary staff. And we wanted to take this opportunity to share with you a new initiative that we have piloted. It relates to phonics curriculum. And the information I'm going to share with you tonight relates to a program entitled Lucy Calkins and her units of study. So as we think of elementary language arts, we know that our job as educators is to take our children on a pathway to become readers and writers. And so as we do that, when we analyze data and look at things, we know that we have to have strong foundational knowledge that children can then apply and transfer, allowing them to be solid in reading and writing. And when we look at this, it brings us to phonics curriculum. So our goal is to make sure that our children are receiving strong phonics curriculum as a proactive approach to literacy. And as we're using a proactive approach to literacy, the beauty of this is it's also a preventative measure for us having to remediate. So with that strong foundational knowledge, we tend to not have to do as much intervention or as much remediation because we're laying a strong baseline. The beauty of the phonics curriculum is also that it's developmentally appropriate. So the way we're developing this is we're achieving it through making sure that kids are able to understand the concepts by making it developmentally appropriate. Utilizing a phonics curriculum also allows for things to be very systematic and consistent. So across the district, we're kind of on that same page, laying a foundation for our early readers. When we look at the phonics development, and we looked at this very heavily as a language arts curriculum, we know that there are several strands to phonemic awareness and phonemic awareness development. So when we looked at phonics, we know that our educators have to be able to incorporate all different strategies into the learning in order for our kids to be successful. So some of the things that we have been focusing on are phonemic awareness, the ability for kids to understand sounds, as well as letter sound relationships, and then moving heavily into blending sounds, word building. And as our grades develop in K2, those concepts enhance. So we start to talk about digraphs, vowel patterns, and also contractions. So we're laying a strong foundation for them to move forward in reading and writing. The beauty of Lucy Calkins has a PhD in the area of reading and writing, and she's created a wonderful college. She's created the Teachers College of Reading and Writing Project, and it's a dedicated program focusing on the growth mindset of kids. So the program allows kids to be taken forward and continually growing and maturing in their phonics development. So Lucy's program is committed to several of the things that we find important as educators. So students are actively engaged in student talk sessions. They're learning how to develop question skills. They're enhancing their vocabulary development. And one of the unique things about this program that we're looking heavily at is that Lucy Calkins puts forth a try again approach to mastery. And what that means is with our early readers and writers, our K2 kiddos, we are focusing on giving them multiple opportunities to try again in order to achieve mastery before moving to the next level. And when we're able to do that, we can see that our deficit shrinks and we're able to get children more on board to the benchmark that they need to be. Lucy Calkins Units of Study, it's a targeted program and it's focused from kindergarten through second grade. The beauty of this program is that it's research based and it's very sequential. So each grade level, kindergarten through second, will follow 5 units of study. And within those 5 units, they will carry out those 5 units within 1 year. So in kindergarten, they'll go through 5 sessions. Within the units, there are mini lessons. There's coaching support provided to our teachers, and there's also small group guidance. So it talks to our teachers and guides them on how to effectively instruct our students and make sure that their phonics foundation is very strong. The other beauty to this program is that Lucy Calkins focuses a lot on assessments and how to track progress amongst kids. So throughout the process of utilizing this program, teachers will have the ability to assess their children, track their progress, and make sure that we're on track for progression. We are very excited about the implementation of Lucy Calkins and their units of study. As an Anchor Bay Language Arts Committee, we spent a great deal of planning and we created a summer framework for this program in the summer of 2019. From that point, we wanted to make sure that this was effective to our Anchor Bay children and to our community. So we piloted the program at each elementary building. And there we had a kindergarten and first grade teacher utilize the Calkins phonics program to see how our children grew from that progress. Throughout the time of the piloting, we also conducted phonics meetings. And there we were able to unpack things, make sure things were going well and moving in the right direction. So following our meetings, following that piloting, we also really felt it imperative to look at some data. So we did a fall data analysis where we looked at our children who had utilized the phonics program in the fall from Lucy Calkins, as well as things that we had already been using. And we did see a great significance in our early literacy scores. By following the guidelines through Lucy Calkins, we were able to make sure that everyone across the district was on the same level and they were getting those same abilities. The biggest insight that we also had is that we saw an increased student engagement. So our kids were extremely excited to participate in these literacy activities. So our overall engagement greatly increased. Following that, we were very pleased that Anchor Bay was able to adopt this program. And just this December, just currently this month, all of our Anchor Bay teachers, K2, did receive the Units of Study Phonics Kit. So they now have those in their hands, all teachers across the district. And we are looking to implement, we have a plan in place for professional development along with teacher collaborative trainings. And those will begin January of 2021, and they will run through June of 2021. So allowing our teachers adequate training, professional development, and really letting them kind of get their hands wet with the materials. All of Lucy Calkins come with teacher guides, tutorial videos and workshops, as well as resources and a box of goods for the children as well. Finally, our final step is we're excited that we can put forth Lucy Calkins Phonics in full implementation in the fall of 2021. So now that our teachers have the materials and they can kind of look through everything, and we've seen great progress amongst our students, we will have full implementation in the fall of this program, which allows all of our teachers at all of our elementary buildings to make sure that they're hitting strong foundational knowledge with these youngsters. And we're very, very excited. We just really want to thank you for supporting the young readers and writers of Anchor Bay. We think that early intervention is key, and our teachers are really motivated to hit the ground running with this program. So if there's any questions.
Thank you for that awesome presentation, and sounds like a great program. And does anybody have any questions or?
I have a couple.
Sure.
Ms. DeWitt?
Yes. Melissa, is this going to replace the Dibbles assessment?
So that's a great question, Marie. So currently we use Dibbles assessment as a digging deeper.
Right.
And we are never removing any of those assessments. This will just be put in place as well. So it allows the teachers to kind of see where we're going as far as phonics development. And then we can always dig deeper as we have Dibbles as our resource.
Okay. Now, are we still using the Lucy Calkins writing program in those lower grades?
So what we currently have is we currently have Lucy Calkins Writers Workshop and Readers Workshop as a resource. And we're also following MESA reading and writing as well, which is in alignment with Lucy Calkins and her workshop model. So it all kind of fits very nicely hand in hand.
So my concern would be, as you look at this, you know, if you're having times of the year, as we know, you do complete assessment inventories of all kids to see where they are, but will there be that same simultaneously those assessments of those K2 kids in the Lucy Calkins assessment model? I mean, we can over-assess kids. I guess that's what.
Sure. And I think it's really, no, great question, Marie. Absolutely. I think it's great to understand that we're not replacing any of those benchmark assessments that we normally do. But when you get a feel for Lucy Calkins, they're very observational, anecdotal, very quick, down and dirty. And it really allows teachers to get quick answers to where right in that moment, they could move forward on something.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily add more to the plate.
Okay. What about, you said that there are the high frequency words that are a part of this program?
Yes.
There still be the adult sight words?
So, yes.
How will that work?
Very good question. So our language arts committee is really looking at that, and we do see a great deal of overlap. So a lot of those will be embedded. So again, not really a replacement, just kind of fine tuning some of those great things we already do.
Okay, and I saw students on computers or tablets in one of the pictures. Is this based on a virtual model that they will be using tablets in the classroom, moving ahead at their own mastery levels? As they master one skill, they move on, or where does that the technology fit in?
So the beauty of Lucy Calkins is it does have a virtual component should you need. It's not based off of technology, so it can supplement, or in situations where we're faced into a virtual, there is some accessibility to that.
Okay, and finally, you're doing really well, Melissa.
Well, thank you.
You answered everything to my satisfaction.
Great.
The professional development, you say you're going to implement next fall, 2021, but you're going to get the materials in their hands, and the professional development is going to be held in January start going forward. So teachers will not be held responsible for implementing until next fall. But they can use
Exactly.
fragments of it to see
Exactly.
what is working and maybe use it diagnostically and so on in the meantime to get accustomed to using it.
Right. We find that it's really beneficial if educators have that opportunity to have some exploratory time. So we have had that piloted crew who are kind of our advisors, and then our teachers can kind of explore based on the professional development and the training they're given. And then from that point, should they want to get a jump start, by all means, just makes them more comfortable in the actual rollout in the fall.
Okay. Sounds great, Melissa.
Great. We're very excited about it.
Good, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board comments or questions?
Yeah, John, I have one, Steve Middlestat.
Yep, Mr. Middlestat?
I appreciate this, again, over the years. I think the focus on taking, on the early elementary children in terms of focusing efforts to their needs has always paid off big time in terms of taking care of those issues early on and getting the fundamentals taken care of. So as those children move forward, they have the basics to be successful. So I really appreciate the new initiatives. I know Anchor Bay doesn't get to be one of the tops in the county without new initiatives and making those initiatives such that they work within Anchor Bay, not necessarily taking a cookie cutter approach, but blending it in. And then again, I think it was very important. I think you really focused on it. It's staff oriented, and that we just don't want to jam these things down on and force these things on. We want it to be an evolutionary way of implementation such that people can get familiar with it and then take off with it when they're really comfortable. So I really appreciate that effort. Like I said, over the years, it's really paid off big, that kind of a process. So really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else from the board? All right, moving on. First, I just want to apologize to those. I guess when I was speaking before, it was a black screen. I'm using two. I'm using my phone and my computer. I got stuck at work, so bear with me. I apologize. We're going to go into now planning for our future. The first agenda item is district needs assessment. With this, just wanted to bring it up. As you know, bond dollars are specifically for our buildings, grounds, capital projects, purchases. Bond dollars cannot be used for salaries and consumable items such as instructional supplies. To maintain our buildings, school sites, athletic fields, school bus fleet, the bond dollars are necessary, and they help us keep student funding in the classrooms for instruction. So our last district bond issue was in 2017, and we ended that. Before that, it was 2003. So, and some of our most notable, I got a list here to kind of let you know what we've done. With the most notable projects recently were the safety and security controls, energy conservation with LED parking lights, LED in the gyms, HVAC controls, flooring upgrades, playground upgrades. The aquatic center got some upgrades, and down the line, athletic field, new band equipment, school bus, parking lots. So, at this point, I think it's time that I'd like to see us form some committees to review and assess what we are, in need of, what our future needs are to support our students and maintain our facilities. Over the past couple of weeks, I've driven around to all the different buildings, looked at them, seen, I talked to Mr. Case. He wrote up a nice kind of hit on all the things that need to be done when it comes to roofs, chillers, HVAC, all the stuff at the different buildings. So I just want to make sure, tonight we talk about it, get some board input on this. Not saying we're going out for a bond, not saying any of that, just kind of what are our needs, what are, our needs and wants, I guess you'd say. And, we can, integral in this is to get, input from teachers, staff, administrators, parents, students, and residents of the district to find out, so they can drill down on, what needs to be done, what's been going on. And so I got about 10 committees here I'd like to see, starting with safety and security, infrastructure, back to the energy conservation, technology, playgrounds, the arts and athletics, school grounds and athletic fields, operations, food service, transportation, custodial, building, envelop, and then technology. And so with that, I think Mr. Woodside wanted to address a few things on this as well, and then I'll open it up to board comment.
Yeah, I know that as you shared when the last bond issue is, Mike, as a school district, we have several buildings throughout the community, 12 buildings. They have roofs, they have mechanical units that we do need to address. We also know that with the change in education with COVID, there's technology issues that we need to address. So there's a lot of things there, and I think that Mr. DeGrew, and I agree with you that if we can at least investigate it and look at it and say, as far as technology, what is the hardware, software, that we need in technology. There's a lot of decisions that need to go on with that. As far as, is it one-on-one laptops for students, or is it another direction? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And that's in every area. When we talk about, the band and athletics and what are the needs in those facilities, across the district. And again, I can't say enough, where we have roofs that are past their useful life, and we've got some mechanical units that need to be addressed. So I think committees coming together to put and assess what those needs are throughout the district. And then at that time, the board could address it even further.
Yeah, that's exactly, like I said, do it at the end of the year, kind of recap what's gone on over the past couple of years, and then be ready to hit the ground running there in January. So that's kind of the idea tonight. Is there any board comment on this particular issue?
I have a comment.
Mr. Witt?
Yes, when we did our last bond, we had, I believe, around $40 million or more that was done and realized as a need in the district until the figures came in and from the district city offices, and our bonding capacity was only 22 million. So there are about 18 or $20 million worth of things that had to be cut from that 2017 bond. So I would suggest that be the starting point to look at, especially infrastructure. I know there were boilers that weren't replaced that we had to take off the list because they were still okay. There were a lot of things, carpeting in some of the other buildings, the older buildings that we definitely wanted to replace, but there was no money to do it. So that might be a good starting point. What was left on that list and what still needs to be prioritized on that list.
Oh, I agree with you. That's a great point. A lot of these I can see just looking at it with the chillers, the cooling equipment,
Yes.
A lot of those things, not only in the maintenance cost, but in the energy savings. If by going
And we
through
couldn't do it because we didn't, and I don't know what our present bonding capacity is. Do you have a recent figure on that? Is that a Todd question?
Yeah, Todd, do you want to take that one? We spoke on it a little bit.
Yeah, it's it's a fluid number, and it would depend on when we want to go out, Marie. Obviously, as we continue to pay down our debt, that number will change. But right now, I believe it's upwards of $80 to $100 million.
Okay, so it'll be a big difference than those constraints that we had in 2017. That's all I'm asking, kind of. So that it's going to allow us to really do some things that really need to be done if we just decide to move forward. I just wondered. Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, thanks, Marie.
But I just did.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me add, we was talking about bonding capacity and Todd had answered that. And just for clarification is when we've gone out for bond issues in the past, we've done it without raising the current taxes on our community. So when Marie was asking the question of bonding capacity, I believe that's what she was asking. How much could we borrow without
Yes, exactly.
raising current taxes? So I just want
Yes.
to clarify that.
Yep.
Correct. Yep. Oh, boy. All right. Any other comments from the board on this issue?
Yeah, John, I would just like to put out there, obviously roofs and boilers, heater are more important for the structure of the building, but I think we really need to put a priority on technology. If COVID's taught us one thing is that I don't think the virtual is going away anytime soon. And the better we get at that, the more apt I think we can save money in the long run on textbooks using laptops over and at the fast pace at which technology or information changes, it's way easier to update a computer than it is to update a textbook, and I'm pretty sure it's a whole lot cheaper. But that's basically what I was getting at was we need to get Wi-Fi in these buildings, and we need to get 1-to-1.
Yeah. Mr. Moses, yeah, I know you and I have had some conversations over the last couple of weeks, and you did bring a lot of great ideas on the technology. We're going to have a technology committee here pretty soon. I know you got some stuff you want to bring up, and yeah, we definitely need to see which direction we need to go, but it's definitely a lot more technology. And I think that 1-to-1 is the goal, at least in my book. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I've got some comments. We've had over the last 30 years, 6 bond issues have been very successful, and success lies mostly as what you talked about, John, is these assessment things where we try to make, we've got the big picture things like HVAC and roofs, but again, many times we've been successful because we focus on the classroom needs and Mike says technology, but other things, whether it's classroom heating and cooling and, desks and other things. I think it's been very important for us to make sure that we have the best conditions for our staff and students to have learning. Again, the technology is a key piece. We also have the ability to understand how it impacts children when we're able to spend the money we have for teachers and other things, not on roof repairs, patching this or patching that, when we can say, okay, for example, the high school is only going to be about 25 years old, and that's a lot of roof, a lot of parking lot, a lot of HVAC equipment to take care of. So when we don't spend money patching things up and we can repair them in a hole, then we save a lot of money that we can throw back in the classroom. Same thing with bus purchases or major equipment. Last year and the last couple of years, we spent money out of general fund for buses and putting them into a bond issue, and makes a lot of sense in terms of keeping us for general fund. But again, there's a lot of things, like I said, in the past, we're successful. We were able to take care of a lot of the curriculum things, athletics, but band and other areas that require a lot of resources, and being able to keep them up is, when you go to other districts, when you come to Anchor Bay, we've got great facilities because of the community support for these bond issues to maintain the buildings. But then also that we've had great custodial staff and people that are in our buildings that take care of them and make sure that issues are there. And what we don't want to run into an issue that maybe we had 30, 40 years ago, when things get run down, that people's attitudes change and parents' attitudes change. And I think when people go by our buildings now or going into our buildings, things are looking good. That's because we've been able to have the fortunate ability to do these bond issues because of the community support. So it's really something that we need to look into, and I agree, if we can get committees put together, because we basically have different areas to focus on. We put the needs, and as Marie said, that we finally get all those lists together, and of course we can't do everything, but we go through and prioritize and try to focus on the best things we can and get the best bang for the buck for all our things. So I think it's we've had a continuous improvement in this district for over 30 years, and we need to keep doing that, because again, it's the community and the children deserve, the staff deserves the best facilities that we can afford to do. So I would agree that we need to move forward, expedite these things. I know everybody's got a list of things they really would wish they could have, and it's just a matter of putting all those lists together and then prioritizing and then laying it all out and saying, hey, let's go for a bond issue here, or let's do this or that. But first step is to get that assessment done and get people in a positive direction and feeling good about, let's try to get some things done here and to improve things for kids and staff in the district. So I really think this is a positive thing for the district.
Thanks, Steve. Is there any other comments from the board?
Mr. Drew, I just had a quick question. It was brought to my attention today that we may be losing Mr. Case. Is there any concerns that with his departure that we're going to stall out on some of these projects, or a lot of them do fall under Mr. Case's umbrella, if you will? And I had heard that he would be, he's departing the organization.
Point of order. That's not part of this discussion. Whether somebody's employed or not is not part of this discussion.
It was a simple question, sir, to ask concerns about the assessment.
You can't put a window out there about somebody leaving the district. That's not right, Blaine.
Okay, let's bring it back to Patrick. We'll, whatever happens there, we'll move on. Andy's a professional, and like I said, he gave me a which I'll be sharing with the board. I got it today. So and with the committee is what it's really for, is a rundown detailed of every building, every system, everything that needs to be done, the life cycle of everything. So I think he's a professional. He's prepared, knows what's going on, very up on it. I think whatever transition needs to be done would be done. So thank you for that question. And yes, we need to make sure that if there's a transition, we're ready for it. And so we'll move on from there. Any other comments? All right, now kind of the reason for this meeting tonight, what I have here is a future curriculum board meeting. Over the past couple of weeks since the last meeting, talked to a lot of parents, a lot of teachers in the district, reached out to the two new board members, talked with them, and our board needs to refocus our time and our attention to the students. We need to get back to reviewing, learning, and planning for the continuous growth of our programs and services to support student learning. We have excellent programs here. Our students lead the county in test scores, which we hear all the time, I know, and it's something we should hit on all the time, because our students are great and our teachers are the ones making it happen. But unfortunately, if you tuned into our monthly board meetings, those outstanding factors can be lost on our community. And to a new member that comes on, they might think that there's something different. And I'm pointing the finger at myself just as much as everybody else. We all need to just kind of come together. This needs to change, and it starts with us. So as a board, we must commit to putting our time and energy behind supporting administrators, teachers, support staff, all those that are in the trenches each day. So to this end, I'm proposing we have a separate meeting each month to focus on student achievement, curriculum needs, and instructional practices. And that's, if you look at in your packet, you have a sample. It's not much different, but a sample agenda. This meeting was centered on one or two presentations with future needs and planning in mind. We would follow our board policies for posting, setting the agenda, and allowing public comment. But the primary focus of the meeting is to focus on our primary mission of the district, which is educating students. And as you see tonight, we started with a virtual presentation of students and a program there. The district needs assessment. Not only upkeep in our building helps to make sure there's a good learning environment for our students, but also the technology like Mr. Moses talked about and the such. And so where did I put that? The sample agenda, we would call the meeting to order. We'd have a couple presentations. We'd look at the good student achievement, focus on something, things that are going well, talk about things that might need to change, things that we might need to update, And I've talked to our ABA president. Teachers' involvement in this is going to be, again, vital in the success of this, and put those presentations together. And then I moved the open forum so that if there's any action items, we'll talk about them. We'll discuss it at length. Then we'll have the open forum, and then we'll have any action items if necessary. That way the public, and the parents get a chance to give their view on what we're discussing. And then we would adjourn, but we would cut out all the other stuff. It'd be a separate meeting. I've talked to some other districts. They're very successful when they have these type of curriculum meetings, and it kind of brings the focus of the board again back to student learning, student achievement, teaching. So that would, I hope to, my goal would be to have our first meeting January 13th, 2021. And then we would plan them after that with the new board members. We have them coming on, and so we could talk with them about it. I know I talked with at least one of them about this recently, and I'll be talking to the other one as well. So not trying to do anything without them, just trying to set us on a path so that we start off 2021 in the right frame of mind of what we need to be doing. So with that, I'll open it up to board's thoughts on us doing this. It's had to be a special meeting tonight because in our policy, it's, one meeting a month. So if we need to do this, make it part of the policy after the first of the year, we can do that. Any discussion?
John, I think it's an excellent idea. We did this in the past. We've done different meeting formats here and there over the course of the years, but I think this was very successful because we end up almost having 2 meetings a month anyway. So again, and this was one of the meetings we did do. We did go to the various buildings. So the first meeting of the month, which was the second, we had it at the second Wednesday, we would focus into the buildings, but it's a very excellent idea. And of course, sometimes action items, there's some items that we need to take care of, but we have tried to avoid those at the best we can and try to just keep focused on any curriculum, whether it's the academics or what's going on in the buildings, if there's some special things there, or what our principals need to showcase before the board. But again, it's an excellent idea that, like I said, was very successful in this district in the past, and I think it'll be a good start for the school year. Not school year, for 2021.
All right, thank you. Is there any other board members?
I think it's an excellent idea. Focusing on the kids and the programs and the progress we want to make and the job that we were supposed to be doing. So I think that it will also open up the lines of communication, which even with our strategic plan to enhance our communication to parents, and also to, I think, to give a greater understanding of what the district's trying to accomplish. So I think it's a really good idea.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think with Marie, one thing I also wanted to put in there is, with the advent, I guess, of Zoom meetings and because of, out of a pandemic came the Zoom meetings. But if we look at even tonight, we're at 137 plus all the Zoom watch parties, I'm sure. So we're reaching a lot more of our parents and the district and our students, and it's time to highlight everything and talk about it and put on really showcase what we're doing here at Anchor Bay. So any other board members?
I think it's a great idea also. Just throwing that out there.
Thanks, Mr. Moses. All right, we will move into Mr. Woodside as a plan for, he's got a 2020-2021 plan for student success. It's a plan to address students' support for success. Presentation will review district's plan to help K through 12 students struggling with the challenge of remote learning and in-person learning. Mr. Woodside.
Thank you, Mr. Guru. I just wanted to briefly go over some stuff because I know this is the time of year as we get close to the first semester ending. What are the things we're going to do as a district to reach out to help students succeed? And we know this year, a very odd one, doing the remote learning has been a learning experience. not only for our students, but our staff. So I just wanted to share some of the things as we move forward, that we currently do and that we're going to add to reach out to those students on what we need to help them be successful. So I know the elementary supports, you can see there that we had the multi-tiered system of supports. And that's basically, we identify the at-risk kids in areas of concern. We use, benchmark assessments and evaluating students. We can create class, small groups, individual interventions. It's basically an in-school interventions and making recommendations. So that is, I guess, the best way to explain it, a safety net to address those students at risk and what can we do to make them successful. And the next you can see there is for K-3, we have the differentiated instruction within the classroom, class profiling done quarterly, skills deficits are identified, and then we were creating individualized teacher assessments during the independent work, to focus on student achievement. The kindergarten small group support from our lit paras and lit tutors to help our kids. Those kindergartners, it's as simple as letter ID, sounds, blends, sight words, things like that. For first through third, we also we continue with the small groups. I believe it was about 25 minutes daily with phonic awareness, decoding, early literature lit skills. K-3, putting together home and school communications resources, handouts that we can provide the families to support student success. And we also have the access to reading A to Z. That's an online reading program that we subscribe to for our students. I continue to go on, and Melissa had shared earlier, some of the things that we do with the new phonic program. Melissa had gone into that with some detail. But the students with individualized reading plans, we're doing as it said, direct individualized contacts weekly with the literacy para based on the skills deficit identified in the individualized reading plan. And as you go through it, you can see at-home reading plan is also provided. Again, we have the support with the reading A to Z that the district subscribes to, and then also the book bag sent home for graded reading levels, appropriate material for additional support. So you can see at our elementaries, the principals and teachers are doing everything possible to reach out to help students succeed. It's so important, as we all know, especially with reading with kindergarten, first, second, third grade. So we've got some concerns in those areas that we need to address, especially with remote learning. Then we also go on to the next slide. And that was, again, the phonics program that was gone over earlier. And what we're doing as far as, in the works is working on an after-school tutoring. We've reached out to the building principals, them to their teachers. And the challenge that we've had is, with the quarantines, we have had challenges staffing our classrooms with teachers. We've used our literacy tutors to help, with, taking over classroom teaching assignments. We separated, the in-person and virtual students at the elementary. So that put more demands on the staffing. So we've got some real challenges there, and how, with having the limited support because we're using all of our teachers in every area, what is it we could do to help those kindergarten, first, second, third graders? And what is in the works is an after-school tutoring. We've reached out to all of our current elementary teachers, just, you know, for them to help with the after-school literacy. So we're going to have targeted literacy. Students will be identified by skill deficit, and materials will be provided by the teachers. So I don't want to call it study hall, but probably similar to that. But it'll be small groups that you know, our teaching staff can reach out to after school hours, you know, to our students to assure that they're at grade level, kindergarten, first, second, third. On the next. You go to the next slide. In the secondary, I want to share what are the things we're currently doing. You know, we have an academic coach at the high school. We have one that works between the two, you know, middle schools, and you know, part of their role is, you know, every other week monitoring the failing students and review that, create individualized success plans for those failing students, whether it be, you know, do they need help organizing? Is it a challenge with exams? Is it a, you know, technology issue where they're not, you know, they're not able to, you know, access the technology? So there's that's one of the reach out. That our counselors obviously monitor, and quarterly we send out letters to students that are failing a course. And then at the semester, it's a credit deficit letter where we have to work with the student on how they would make up for that credit loss. And what I wanted to share, when we gather the information to look at, and we do it each time this year, I talked to Mr. McDonald about it. In the first quarter last year, the majority of the year we were, you know, face to face. We had about 94 students that were failing a course. This year we have 192. So we have 192 students that are getting an F in a course. So we have to, again, just like at the elementary, you know, what is it we're going to do to reach out, you know, to those students to make sure that they're successful. Go to the next slide. So some of the things that we are, you know, currently we have the after school tutoring. We do have teachers reaching out with the students after school. You can see the math and the ELA, and you can see the times there. More information if you went on our website. You could gather more information, go on the individual school, whether you're at the high school, the middle school north, or middle school south. You go to the next slide. Again, kind of shows what we're doing in science, social studies, and Spanish. So we want to reach out to these kids, you know, after school hours, and do everything we can to make them successful. And when we looked at the 194 students that had an F or more in a class, one of the biggest reasons was not doing homework. That was the biggest challenge that we had across the board. So we have to, you know, reach out, see how we can, you know, address that, and what are the ideas, especially this year with, you know, we've doubled the number of students that are failing a course at the high school. So we are making those plans to reach out to all the students. Again, I don't like to call it study hall, but I guess maybe that might be the best way. But any student that's failing, we will need them to reach out after school hours so we can work with them, so our teaching staff can work with them to make these students successful. So if you do your homework, I guess you're not going to get a 7th-hour class. But it's clear that when they do, in the instance where we've looked at the data, when students have done their homework, they've done well on the quizzes and exams, as you would suspect. And when they don't, they're obviously challenged every time they are faced with taking a quiz, you know, or an exam. Go to the next slide. So after school tutoring, we're also going to do it at North and South. You can see the times there. Again, go to your building, website that we're going to be reaching out to, all the students and their families that are currently, challenged, under the current circumstance, whether they're face-to-face or virtual. Secondary support, technology support, what we're currently doing is open Zooms with instructional technology coach. We've got one-on-one Zoom appointments. You can contact the district technology. You can see the email, the ABS tech support at abs.misd.net, and that's on our website. Parents can reach out to that for student support. We've got open computer labs for students that do not have, access to the internet at home or computers. So we're doing the computer labs Monday through Friday and reaching out to those students. And then you also have your resource support centers that are middle schools, again, doing small group interventions with our special needs students. Okay. What I just tried to show here, and we can go through this quickly, how did we get to where we are? I mean, we've always been proud as a district that our students perform very well when compared to the state and county averages. So in order for us to continue what we're maintaining here, we're going to need to think outside the box with the idea that we have some kids virtual, learning and some kids face-to-face. So here you have across the board, you can see over the last decade, we've outperformed the county and the state. That's English. Do we have the, for some reason it's blocking, but as you go through these slides, you can go to the next one. You can see social studies over the last decade, we outperformed the state and county. We're proud of that, and I think the big reason for that is we've got great parents that education is very important in our community. We've got great teaching staff that look for every way possible to reach out to students and how to turn that light bulb on. We've got administrators that overseeing new opportunities. Like I had said earlier, it's our high school principal organizing those opportunities to reach out to those kids, and our two middle school principals reaching out after hours, organizing this so we can reach out. And then the same across the board with our elementaries. You can go to the next one. So we're just trying to show here as you go across, in order for the district to continue to maintain that, it only went back a decade, but if you look at a lot of that, you can see that we continue to do very well, across the board in every subject area. You go to the next. All right. So I just wanted to share that, and that I know that our principals are going to be reaching out to our, the students that are challenged right now as far as, failing grades. And we're creating another safety net for after school hours. Maybe the best way to say it's 7th hour, to reach out to these kids, students, to make sure that they're successful. And I think the idea, obviously what I shared there over the last, decade, that's a big reason that people move out to a community or come out to Anchor Bay. I think we've all heard that a number of times, that people do look at the school district before they're going to join a community. And we're proud of the fact that we've been able to do an outstanding job. We are challenged this year, with the remote learning, but we are addressing it, each day, and what are the things that we can do.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Woodside, Superintendent Woodside. Is there any comments from the board? Questions?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Ms. Berkmeyer?
With the governor's orders that came back out extending the pause, I know she allowed for CTE programs to start coming back in and doing, relevant or needed coursework and even special ed for high school. So do we have plans to incorporate that?
Yeah, the special ed will continue with the, reach out we've been doing. So we're going to continue that during the time we're doing all remote. And we have not addressed the CTE yet, but we are in the process of doing that. I know that that's, one of the areas we were organizing how to reach out. If I got, I did want to share, if Joe, if you're on there, sorry, I need to ask you a quick question. When we looked at the high school students that had an F or more, the 190 plus students, how many of them were virtual and how many of them are face-to-face? Was there a...
Yeah, Leonard, the data's actually, when you look at the data, in the ninth grade, the majority of the students that had an F were face-to-face students. There was 43 of them, and 13 of those of the 56 ninth graders were virtual. 43 were face-to-face. 10th grade, it was also overwhelmingly more face-to-face students with an F than virtual. And then, interesting enough, at 11th grade, it was dead even. And as the students got older in 12th grade, there were more virtual students that received an F than face-to-face students.
Okay, that's what I was thought, and I just wanted to ask you before I, commented on that. I think, we pulled a lot of data, on what are the things we need to do to help these students across the board, but especially at the high school, be successful. With having double the amount, we need to double our efforts, to reach out to those families and see what we can do. One, help with, organizing, or, how do we assure that, students will complete, do the homework? Is there some, technology issue that they may be having? But, like I said, we're going to reach out and help those students be successful.
All right. Any other?
I have a
Mr. Witt?
comment.
Yep.
First of all, I'm very pleased. I think that you did an excellent job in addressing many of the concerns that I believe are rising out of the change, eliminating face-to-face in going all virtual at the secondary level. And I'm really happy to see that this, as in any educational process, has to be fluid. As the needs arise, but you're constantly looking at them, evaluating them, and then problem solving to make sure that you can address those concerns. So I think you've done an excellent job, and I really liked that, even tapping into retired teachers that might be willing to provide that intervention, because you are using your literacy tutors to run classrooms in so that we could separate the elementary virtual from face-to-face. So I think that, you've done an excellent job in addressing many of the concerns. I also want to remind, you talked about Fs. I do think that we still are dealing with the mindset for many from last year, because we were mandated that kids could not or would not suffer any long-term results academically from having to be at home virtually from March till the end of the school year. So there probably was not the rigor the expectations. Kids were not held probably because of the circumstances to the same standard as they would be in a face-to-face classroom. That has changed this year. We're running fully vigorous academic programs. We have high expectations for student achievement, and the rules have changed for these kids this year. And that would result in our having to get their attention to help them understand they have to do the work in order to get the appropriate grades. So I do think that there is some of that that is kind of residue from last year that you're going to have to be dealing with this year to get their attention, so to speak. I also, because I know that there is a reluctance to go fully virtual at the elementary level, but I would also suggest that with staff input, maybe you look at those K3 grades and see if there are ways that we can really focus on reading and writing and math and not add additional content to the load at that level at this time, especially if we have to go virtual. After all, you know, kids aren't going to be successful in science and social studies if they can't read and they can't write and they can't do math. So, you know, there might be some things where we can get to enrichment type activities in the reading, provide remediation, but also not make that K3 so rigorous that many of these kids are, especially the ones that are virtual right now, it's a real challenge for them. And if we could support the reading, writing, and math and put the focus there, it might make it easier for these little ones to stay engaged, especially at home, and to not get a bad attitude in general about school. So it's just something to think about. And you might want to even, collaborate with the teaching staff to see if that might be some things that would help them and help students.
Yeah, I agree, Marie. I mean, I know we've got two big challenges. We've got many challenges with the school year, but the two big challenges that I have a great concern with is our kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, and that's with reading. And we know, we ended last school year where the students had gotten out early. We were not prepared, for that. We recovered to do what we could at that time, and then going into this school year, those challenges continue. So the concern is we really have to double back and reach out to those kindergarten, first, second, and third, especially with reading, and having the challenges to get staff, the challenges because you have so many people that you stretch to the limit, trying to get classrooms covered and everything else. And then we posted, and we didn't get a whole lot of applicants for that. So we circled back and said, look, let's reach out to our teachers and see if we can, set up after school support and who would be interested, in doing that. And I know that we did get many responses, so we're in the process at the elementary working on that, and we'll continue to reach out to our recent retired staff, and because we have to do everything we can to address that the reading skills for kindergarten, first, second, third grade, and like you said, the same with math, and if we don't, those students are just going to be challenged as we see them go through, fourth and fifth and sixth grade. The challenge is going to continue. Right. So we need to do everything we can to attack it in those, early grades, and that's exactly what we're doing. And the principals are doing a great job of help planning that and reaching out to their staff and what we're able to do. The other big challenge is, the high school. And we have kids, like we said, we have over 190 kids failing a course. So we are making every effort to reach out to those families and students and what is it we can do. The biggest challenge is getting that homework done so they can do well when quizzes and tests come. When we look at the data, it's clear that that's exactly what could, what will happen. I know that Mr. McDonald, Mr. LaPerriere reached out to his staff to begin organizing that so we can reach out to those families. I think it would be good that probably, I would say like April would probably be a good time to see how those 192 students are doing. We need to circle back later in the school year and look at the methods and how we reached out and has it been successful, especially with those seniors.
All right. Any other board members have any questions?
I had a comment too is, I know at one of our public forums that we had a parent mention, for our students for Power School, Power School is where you figure out where you're missing papers or where your grades are at. Right now, I think Power School, we've got parents can have the ID and then there's children will be identified. But I'm wondering, I know Chippewa does it, whether we can get Power School, each individual student, 6 through 12, their own individual Power School accounts so that they can look at their grades and not have to depend on their parents having to tell them when they're missing papers or whatever. I'm just thinking, looking at accountability, that it might, or some students might not really pay attention to it, might be a positive thing to have them own these scores, that they know firsthand that, whoops, I missed this paper or I'm behind 3 papers, rather than having to rely on the parent to have to tell them. It keeps the parent still would have access to it, but at least the student would know firsthand where they stand in terms of their grades and make them a little bit more recognize what's going on with their situation. So I'm just wondering if we could look into that. I think, like I said, we had a former board member mention it in one of our open forums, but I believe Chippewa does it. And I think it'd be a positive thing if we could do that, and at least see if that makes a difference. I just think it's important that students understand where they stand and not have to have mom and dad bug them about it every time. We can make sure that before the mom and dad find out that they have a big issue. So anyway, that's just my only comment.
I think we're open to, all ideas. I know I believe next week, I'd have to ask Anita, Tuesday next week, we're having a technology meeting. So we've got more ideas that we need to put in place to help students succeed.
I would just like to talk about Mr. Middlestate. Yes, we're just waiting for the committee meeting to talk about that. I agree, it is a good idea, and I would also like to reach out to that board member and possibly get her opinion on the committee, if possible.
Yeah, Mike, and I think, one of the things one of the things that you had mentioned, Mike, about the idea of having all homework, whether you're virtual or face-to-face, submitted through Schoology. And that'll give us an opportunity to discuss those things, whatever. We're looking for ideas on how we're going to reach out and make these students successful. So, Mike, I think that was a good one.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, like I said, I think the more ideas we get that we can discuss in this committee and weed through, the better. We definitely got a big project ahead of us.
Yes.
All right. Any other board members have anything for Mr. Woodside? All right. Seeing none.
John?
Oh, yes, Ms. Saccobetti.
I just want to kind of mention, for the virtual learners, besides the fact that, the classroom teacher is expected to teach all 4 subjects for the elementary school kids. And, I can tell you as a parent, watching the changes in the math curriculum over the years, I'm sure you can attest to that too, John. You got kids the same age, that the math has changed so much that what we learned as students ourselves is not the way it's taught today. So even the parents, you know, run into the issue with looking at an assignment. They know how to give the student the answer, but they don't know how to give it to them in the fashion in which they're required to submit it for school. And I think some of those, you know, whether, you know, you're teaching virtual K through 5 or not, those teachers need some assistance in as well from their different curriculum departments. Because if you're teaching, you know, 3rd grade and, you know, maybe you're certified in social studies or English and math is, you know, not your certification, to have the math curriculum get together a little bit to give ideas or reiterate, you know, some strategies to help the teachers pass those on to the students, I think would also be helpful for the teachers as well, because they're attempting to learn 1 or 2 areas that they may not regularly support for their virtual learners. So I'm sure they have to be frustrated as well. And I think a lot of the people that I know that are in the virtual environment are finding some issues with technology as well. So I think maybe the buildings need to have scanners. That might be through your technology area, and different things to help the teachers get their work into the Schoology platform in a readable, viewable fashion, you know, because a lot of the teachers, you know, are taking pictures and posting it, and, you know, technology is not the same for each individual classroom, each individual building. And I know Ashland's going around and trying to help all the teachers, but I think we just got to make sure we give them all the resources they need to get all the information to all of their learners, and to know the strategies themselves to help, you know, like I said, they can't be expected to be a master of all of the areas. You have to give them assistance too. So it'd be great. You know, I know they started the after school program for the middle school virtually. You know, I think there's a plan to maybe get that out to the elementary level as well. But a parent had mentioned to me that it would be great to know if there was a schedule. So for instance, the person who might be covering an after school, you know, if their area of specialty is math, maybe on Mondays, and social studies on Thursday. So a kid can log in and get the help from a teacher in the best format possible. So I don't know if there's a way of creating a schedule so that parents know when the math certified teachers are available and when language arts is available, and social studies or science, or even some of the higher level classes, you know, or specials, you know. How about, you know, Mandarin or Spanish or whatever, you know, so if we can have some kind of schedule for resources so that parents can take and schedule that into their day for the students for the month or whatever, I think that might help them meet their needs as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things, exactly what we're talking about. If you go on the web page, you can see when the different core subject areas are meeting and when the kids could get support. So yes, Janine, that will be out there.
All right, thank you. Any other board members have a comment, questions? Okay, with that, we'll go into the open forum. Now with open forum, I just want to point out, if you could state your name prior to talking. Well, on Zoom, we can really see it, but also on individual issues, or, you know, if it's something that needs more discussion. I've talked with, you know, Mr. Woodside. He's reached out to parents in the past the next day. You know, I'd like to take those, because sometimes there's more to it, and he can get you all the information, and you can either do a Zoom meeting with them in person or over the phone, however it works in your world. So, and then if something happens where you don't get reached out to, then you could reach out to a board member or to myself, and we'll make sure that your problem gets taken care of. So with that, we'll start. Tim, I see Cheryl Stinkus. Is that what you have?
No, there's other ones that submitted it online, which is what they're supposed to do.
Well, we'll start with the ones that submitted it, but anybody that wants to talk, we definitely want to hear from the parents, but in order to get through them all, that's why I'd like to make sure, if you got, like I said, individual questions, it's great. It's productive to hear about it. So in case someone else has that question, but we can have the superintendent get with you tomorrow. But we'll start. Who do you got first?
Brian Powers.
All right, Mr. Powers?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, yeah, Brian Powers, class of 93. I'd like to commend this board for their efforts thus far to keep at least our elementary students with an option for face-to-face learning. I know that's not an easy decision to make. In fact, the easier thing would probably just to be to follow the crowd and do what a lot of other districts are doing and say, everyone else is going virtual, we'll just do that too. And we could do that, and we could sit there and pat ourselves on the back and say that we're doing it to keep students safe. And we could even probably convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing. I know we like to imagine this utopia where we shut the schools down and send our students home and they spend their days isolated and inoculated from all the dangers of this pandemic, but that's not really what happens, because working families just don't have that luxury. When you shutter our schools, that means our children are spending more time in learning centers outside of school, in childcare centers outside of the home, neighbors' houses, grandparents' houses, and on and on. So, you know, in the name of keeping them safe, we're actually putting them in harm's way when we shut our schools. Because, and one thing that I would like this board to keep in mind is the reality is you're not, and it's an unfair position for you, I get that. You're not just making decisions that are whether or not a child is going to school. You're making decisions about their overall health and wellness when you make these decisions about in-person versus virtual. So I ask you to keep that in mind as we go forward, because obviously this is going to be a decision that you're making on a constant basis for many, many months to come. I'd ask you to look at depression and anxiety and other mental health disorders that are on the rise in our children. Look at drug use that is on the rise in our children. And these things are on the rise because we keep taking things away from them in the name of keeping them safe. Just think about all that our young children have had taken away from them in the last 8 months. Their schools, their sports, their social structures. These are all the things that give them joy and give them hope. And we keep taking these things away in the name of keeping them safe. And school, school is the one thing that we don't have to take away from them if we don't absolutely have to. So maybe you don't want to listen to me. If you don't want to listen to me, there's someone way smarter than me you can listen to by the name of Dr. Fauci. Even Dr. Fauci has recently come around and changed his tone on this and said that we need to be doing everything we can to keep children in school. And I'll give you a direct quote from him. If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not really very big at all, not like one would have suspected. So I put that out there because even if Dr. Fauci can admit that sending students to school does not present the risk that we thought it would 8 months ago, I think we need to recognize that as well, and we need to fight to keep our children in school if at all possible. So I just ask the board to keep that in mind as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Powers. Well, who do you got next, Mr. Sizemore?
I see Jeff Brothers, but I don't see him as a name in here. I don't know if he's in as a different name. Maybe we can come back later.
I'm looking at him. He's in as Colonel. There he is.
Hello. Jeff Carruthers, 9750 Arnold Road in Ira, Michigan. It's been about a year since the Anchor Bay Junior ROTC debacle, and while the facts can be reduced to just a short list, there remains a large number of unanswered questions. Questions I'm sure citizens of the district would appreciate to be answered. Perhaps they will be in the new year. For example, how was the district's investigation of the Junior ROTC program independent? The district not only funded the investigation, but chose the law firm, and the investigating attorney consulted with the school board president. After I met with the school board president in August of 2019 and informed the president that this was illegal with the 8th graders, why didn't the president take action to ensure these students were not in the program before school started? As the highest governing body in the school district, it is incumbent on the board to correct district violations of federal law when so informed. Why didn't the school board president submit an affidavit to this investigation? Why didn't the school board president recuse himself from leading the investigation? Why was the highly effective superintendent not held accountable for his role? He represented the district. He signed the agreement/contract on behalf of the district. He certified he was, quote, fully authorized to enter into the terms and conditions of this agreement and to execute the same so as to effectively bind each party to its terms, end quote. The district's own investigator said, quote, I find the lack of oversight of Carruthers and the junior ROTC program in general to be unacceptable. I don't find ignorance to be a defense, and I do not feel it should have been all on Carruthers to make sure that the principal or the superintendent knew about the reports being submitted. This seems like something they should have been aware was happening and should have been inquiring about and following up with, end quote. And, quote, it is the superintendent who signs the MOA and has the ultimate responsibility to comply with that agreement, end quote. Why was the director of student services not held accountable for her role as supervisor? Why did the Air Force investigator only, quote, talk with the then instructor for less than 5 minutes when the investigator came to the district? And why didn't the director of student services, the only other person in this meeting, speak up for a loyal employee? Why didn't the district offer the then instructor a different position within the district, which they could have done? Why were the other instructors, past and present, not also held accountable for having knowledge of these violations? Why didn't the Air Force simply close the program at Anchor Bay upon discovering such egregious violations for so many years, over 20 years? You form your own opinion based on the facts and these many unanswered questions. Ask the new school board next month the pointed questions. What does each of them think about this so-called independent investigative process? Are they satisfied with the results? Is this the type of district that they envision? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carruthers. Who do you got next, Mr. Sizemore?
Cheryl?
Stankus?
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Hello, Cheryl Stankus. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Cheryl Stankus, 37068 Fox Point, New Baltimore. First, I wanted to comment on the committees that you are hoping to form. I really hope you guys include parents of the district on these committees because there are so many with great qualifications and their knowledge would be invaluable on those committees. And as far as I have to disagree with Mrs. DeWitt's comments about parents and students not taking this year seriously and the grades. I have to disagree because as parents, we, especially those of us who chose face-to-face to start with, we ended up having to set up classrooms in our houses, buy computers with webcams, arrange for sitters for working parents, and flipping back from virtual to face-to-face is the major problem for these students who are failing. Handing in paper assignments while they're face-to-face and then having to submit documents virtually is another problem because those assignments, sometimes they are completed on their computers and then the teachers get blank assignments. This has happened to my kids many times. And then I was wondering, the numbers that you had for students that were failing courses, was that students that failed a course last quarter, or that's how many students are currently failing courses this quarter? Can we get that information?
Do you have that readily handily?
190 was from this year, this school year.
Okay. Thank you.
But I guess my question was that last quarter? You know, we're into the second quarter. That was my question. And then finally, attendance. I'm really getting tired of getting all these notifications saying my kid is unverified in class when they're sitting in there and I can see that they're in the class. So if we can have a discussion with our teachers, I know it's difficult. They've got a lot of kids in their classrooms, but I'm getting these automated phone calls at night, and during the day, I'm getting Power School notifications saying my kid's not in class and I can see that he's on. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Stankus. And I'll have Mr. Woodside look into that and make sure that that's addressed and he'll reach out to you. Who's next, Mr. Sizemore?
Amy?
Amy gave Mrs. Allen.
Hi, good evening. I hope you're all well. It's great to hear that the district is looking to focus in on the students, and I hope that it will be the entire student body. What I have heard last year, and here I'm going to backpedal a minute, it is fantastic that the state mandated to the schools that the kids do not suffer long-term results due to virtual learning. I hear a lot from Anchor Bay about the failing kids. My concern are the kids somewhere in the middle. I've also heard last year, you've heard me pleading and begging for a GPA to be included, the in-class grades. And that just couldn't be done because the other districts weren't doing it. We're going to follow the other guys, and that it would also damage class rankings. So back then, the school looked at the failing kids, looped back several times to get them up, and then also looked at the kids with their 4.4s. All right, but my student that was striving to raise a GPA, who is a junior in high school now, is where it's key. It's crucial, this GPA. All that he received was credit. Now, back to this year, right? He's doing great, except for one core class. He went from an 88 last year, face-to-face, end of third quarter, 88 in math, which was his lowest grade. That's pretty good. In math right now, virtually, and he does go to class, he does submit assignments, and it is taking a mental toll on him. He's gone from 88 face-to-face to 65. Now you're going to count that grade. So now I hear that CTE, you're allowing those possibly coming back in face-to-face. And I'm thinking, well, and maybe the core classes, maybe just some kids can't do certain classes virtually. It just doesn't work with their brain. Can we maybe get the kids in the middle of the road that he is suffering because of this virtual, from an 88 face-to-face that Anchor Bay won't let him keep to a 65 virtually that you're going to count in? And yes, we've done tutoring, we've done private tutoring. And I just hope that you look at the meat of Anchor Bay in the middle. And how many kids? I mean, we got 194, 192 failing. You more than doubled the failing right now. How many kids have dropped their grades? What about the kids in the middle? It's not just black and white. I mean, you know, are the kids overall, are the A students, the B students, now C students? Is that anything that the district can look at and consider? The kids in the middle that need these grades and that are doing the work, that need them for their futures. That's all I ask. Please look at the middle, look at the meat of Anchor Bay. Thank you much.
Thank you for your comments. And is there anyone else? I don't see any hands up. You got anybody, Tim?
No, I do not.
All right. So, and we do have, well, it's Miss Richards. Stephanie Richards is up, Tim.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Stephanie Richards, 9980 Arnold Road. I just kind of wanted to piggyback off of what Cheryl said, as far as including parents in your committees. You know, there's a lot of parents out there that would love to be included, that would be a value add. So I support that, and I know I have many friends in the district that would also support that and probably want to be part of those committees. So I also wanted to say that I love the idea of focusing on the students that you brought up at the beginning of this meeting. I don't think we should need a whole separate meeting about it. I think we need a whole separate meeting to cover everything we need to cover, but I think at all meetings, our students should be our focus. So that's all. Thank you.
Yep. And I just want to, on this, I want to make sure it's clear on these committees. We're definitely going to have, it's integral. We have input from teachers, staff, administrators, parents, students, and residents, everybody. And that was the top line on Mr. Case's, report to me. Mr. Woodside and I've been talking about it. Yes, we want to have everybody's buy into this. That is something that is very, very important to us and will be done, guaranteed. Anybody else like to speak? All right. Seeing none at this point, but you'll have another shot in a minute because we got two of them tonight, but they're a little mixed up. So we'll go to Union Communications, see if anybody's, does Ms. Petron want to speak?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
All right, so I guess in the spirit of this purpose of this meeting, I would like to say thank you to our teaching staff, all of our staff at Anchor Bay for all their hard work and dedication during these difficult times. I think every idea that was brought up tonight is amazing. And I love the idea of committees, and I love the idea of these extra additional tutorings and all these other things. I guess one thing that I would ask all of you to keep in mind is teaching right now isn't how it used to be. And our teachers are under an enormous amount of stress. And I actually sent the board a survey that we recently did of our membership. I think asking people to put more on their plates right now might not be, I don't know. I just think you need to think about what you're asking your staff. I want everybody to have input. I think these are all amazing ideas on paper, but the actual execution of them all, when people are working so hard and putting in so many hours right now as it is, I just think that's something that you need to be mindful of. And also I would like to say to the community that I appreciate their understanding and their grace right now during this time. None of this is easy for anybody. Our staff is doing the very best they can in these circumstances, and I appreciate that. So that's it. Thank you.
Hey, John, I don't think anybody can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. I don't know where that ended, but I just wanted to thank Ms. Petron for sending those results to all the board members of the survey they did. It was very insightful. And a lot of the stuff we brought up tonight, Mr. Woodside and I have been talking to other board members. I've been talking to the two new board members. And you're going to be key in what we do here. And I'd like to, before the end of the year, have a conversation with you, myself, and Mr. Woodside, and where we can go over a lot of this stuff and get your input on where we need to go with some of these things. And your teachers best. So, that's something we're looking at doing. Is there any other union communications? All right. Seeing none. If the public has, you got another shot at the title, if any, Mr. Powers.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to circle back and get some clarification on part of Mr. Woodside's presentation. There was this comment made about secondary students that are failing a class, and there was a distinction made between face-to-face students versus virtual students in secondary. And I guess I'm a little confused on that, because with the exception of about a 4 or 5 week period from mid-October to mid-November, all of our secondary students have been virtual for the entire year. So I guess I'm looking for some context in those numbers, because somebody could, without the context, somebody could look at those numbers especially when someone asked, I believe it was Mr. McDonald, for a breakdown of the failures on face-to-face versus virtual, and the numbers of failing grades for face-to-face students were astronomically higher than the ones for virtual. So I think we need some context, because I think somebody could just look at the numbers and say, you know, virtual good, face-to-face bad. And if somebody who comes to these meetings and is really, really, you know, dead set on throwing everybody virtual, they could look at those numbers out of context and try to use those for justification. So I think we need some better context in those numbers, because by themselves, they may paint a different picture than is really going on, unless I misunderstood the comments. But and then the other thing to keep in mind is for those secondary students that went face to face, you got, you know, they were forced to start the school year virtual. They then were allowed to go face to face, and then a month later, because of the state of Michigan, they were forced back out. So they yo-yoed back and forth, and that alone is a tremendous burden on our educators, on our students, and that would cause a lot of students to struggle. So that probably has more to do with the failure rate than anything. You know, not necessarily it being a virtual versus face-to-face thing. And the other thing to keep in mind is, I believe way more students went face-to-face than virtual when given that option. So I think it stands to reason that if there's a set number of failure, if you've got exponentially more students in face-to-face than virtual, well, naturally, you're going to have a higher number of face-to-face students failing than virtual. So I guess I'm just looking for some context behind those numbers, if not today, at some point down the road.
I think that's it's not really an individual question. That's kind of like broad. So what, Mr. Woodside, can you kind of give some context to what you were looking for there?
Well, I think we were just sharing, sharing one piece of 20 pieces of data rather than go through it all. So it wasn't intended to say, you know, with this grade level, they're more successful face-to-face, and at this grade level, they're more successful virtual. It was just one piece of quite a bit of data to point out, but it wasn't to say face-to-face is better or virtual is better. You know, it's just one piece of the data to collect to see how we would address it and how we're going to reach out to the kids. You know, yep, we know that they came back on October 5th, and then they're back out at this time, and you know, hopefully after the new year we'll be back. But it was just one piece of data to allot it, and I just didn't want to go through all of it in detail, but I thought that one was kind of you know, jumped out at us. But it doesn't mean that it's, you know, it did not mean that virtual is better, and that wasn't the intent.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to frame the context so that it couldn't be interpreted that way. And obviously, I think we all agree, virtual or in person, we don't want 190 plus students failing, and then that should be the real focus.
Yep. No, that's twice, you know, with all the changes, you know, that is twice the amount of students that we'd seen last year. So we've got an issue we've got to address and get after it. And it wasn't to address whether virtual or face-to-face was better.
Got it. Thank you.
I think that would, and to your point, Mr. Powers, that would make a good point, that we'd have double the amount with the yo-yo that it's been this year. So we just got to sit down and figure out how we're going to reach out to these kids a lot better that might have those issues. Is there any other? I see there's a Chris Keel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Holly Keel, St. Clair Drive, New Baltimore. I was just wondering if there's been any thought about semester exams for the high school, if there's going to be any kind of change or moderation, since this has been an awful semester.
Yeah, we have talked, I know that we have talked about it. And I know it's Mr. McDonald, is he?
Yep, I'm here.
No, Joe, we've talked about that amongst many others issues, and the idea of the weight of it. I think what the parents asked about the weighted exam, Mrs. Keel, is that what you're asking?
I think in general, the exams is what.
Yeah. I mean, I could speak to that real quick. It definitely has been a discussion item. with administration, and I have reached out to high school teachers for an advisory committee to get feedback, and that is one of the main topics in our meetings next week.
Maybe what we can do, and I can send an email out to the curriculum committee tonight, get their availability. Maybe we can throw together it'd be good for them to meet, do a curriculum committee between now and next week's meeting, and see if we can't have a better explanation for the parents by next week. So that seemed like something we could probably do, Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, I was anticipating, that something of that, and we've been talking about it even prior to the last board meeting with administration. So that's why I wanted to gather some high school teacher input.
Okay.
So that would be very feasible.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ms. Keel. I don't see anybody else with their hand up. So we'll move to superintendent comments. Mr. Woodside.
Yeah, I think the presentation, I pretty much covered, we're going to be reaching out to those families, of those students.
Okay. So now we'll move to board comments. Start with Ms. Burkmeyer.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I like the going to 2 meetings. John, I know you and I have talked about that for a long time. So I think that's a good add to have. I've advocated for that for a while. So I look forward to hopefully having that work out for us and the board, and letting us be able to address more things, maybe more timely, and just get things rolling. And hopefully we can maybe, without the meetings possibly being quite as long, if there's more, maybe we will have some better thorough discussion on the items that we are addressing in that moment, by separating it out like that. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Ms. DeWitt.
Yes, I just want to clarify that in no way did I mean to minimize or suggest that students weren't working terribly hard in the virtual setting at the secondary level. I'm only saying that it was a different ballgame in the spring. And I think for some kids, that hasn't registered yet. And just to take that into account, that we have to make sure that the message gets through, that they all will be accountable. There are not going to be any changes made in the grading situation and so on. And that we have requirements for classes, and those requirements have to be fulfilled. That was my only suggestion. But I do think that it was a different ballgame last year, and many kids don't really understand that it isn't going to be quite the same. But all of our kids, I think, are working very, very hard, as the teachers are, to deliver the best instruction possible. And they deserve the support, which I'm seeing many of those supports go into play. And I'm very happy to hear that we're proactively taking some major steps to make sure that that happens. I've heard from a number of teachers this year about incidences, or in the last month, where students have developed high fevers after they have come to school. So I would ask that maybe we explore what schools are actually taking temperatures, especially at the elementary level, when kids come into the building. It's just another safeguard to take, and find out how they're doing it, and do an analysis of it, what we might want to do to add that to our safety measures, just as a little more protection, for not only for the fellow students, but for the staff. And just like to, I really have enjoyed the focus of this meeting. And we did for many years have a curriculum meeting and then a regular board meeting. And I do feel that it's very beneficial to have the explanations we've heard and the opportunity to really share the good things that we're doing for kids. And that's what it's all about. So I do want to thank all of the staff in the Anchor Bay schools, district administration, principals, students or staff, and especially all of our teachers. I know how hard they're working. I know that they have what's best for students in mind at all times. I know how difficult it is to do a great job virtually, and they're doing that. So I just want to signal them out as the real heroes, and just tell them that their work is really appreciated. They're making a difference in the lives of our kids every day. And I just personally want to say thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Witt. Mr. Green?
Yes, thank you, President Giroux. I agree with the two meetings. I won't recap it because Marie and Lisa certainly covered it fairly well. So I think that's a great idea. I want to clarify my question about Mr. Case. It certainly wasn't meant to be derogatory towards Mr. Case. I've worked with Andy on a couple different projects and a couple different things that he's had going on, especially with the COVID. My question was not to question his integrity or his character or his work ethic, but more how are we going to continue on in January, possibly February, when we have a new Mr. Case here. So I see Mr. Case there. If for some reason I misspoke, which occasionally I do, that certainly wasn't meant to be derogatory at all, or indicate that Mr. Case wasn't, meeting expectations or doing his job. Secondly, along that same thing, I'll ask my fellow board members to treat me with the same respect and dignity that I've given them over the past 2 years. I allow people to speak and have allowed fellow board members to speak. And sometimes they do go a little astray, but I certainly have allowed them to speak. But I do recognize the chair of the president, and certainly if the president feels like I'm going awry, I respect that he or she may step in at that time. But I don't look forward to other board members silencing me when I'm speaking and asking questions. And lastly, perhaps I misunderstood, but I was under the impression that board meetings were directed to be virtual. And that we were to remain at home or at a virtual connection if possible. Perhaps I misunderstood something because I much prefer face-to-face meetings. So maybe, Mr. President, if you could just clarify that if the expectation is that we are virtual or that we have the option to report to what we use as our board office or board room, I would appreciate that.
On that, it is supposed to be a fully virtual. That's why I'm here in my office. I think Mr. Middlestad had an issue at his house, and that's why he's over at the school. And Mr. Woodside met him there. That's my understanding. And Mr. Sizemore runs this from there. That's where all the setup is. And obviously, we started the meeting a little bit late so that Mr. Sizemore could get Mr. Middlestat set up. So I don't think there was anything there. I think it was just, we are supposed to be at this point fully virtual. I do, like you, I prefer to be at Anchor Bay North or at whatever school we would want to be at. But yes, your point is well taken.
Thank you, sir. That's all for me.
Yep. And Ms. Accavetti had her shot.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for the focus of this meeting this evening, and hopefully this helps move things in a forward trajectory. Thank you, Mr. DeRue.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Moses?
I would just like to, again, talk about how great some of our kids are doing. I know it's been a real struggle, but our boys soccer team, we had a bunch of kids with all-state academic, all-state first team, all-state second team, honorable mentions. Our boys tennis team plays second in the MAC Blue. I'll be glad when we get our student council president back on to do these updates. Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff that we missed because I'm just not that good at it. The other, volleyball team, third place in the MAC White, 29th finalist in the districts. I mean, this is great stuff. But the other thing I really wanted to talk about or to say is, guys, I would love to know, or that you guys know that we do care. We care about the teachers. We care about our families. We care about our district, our administrators. Unfortunately, sometimes we're put in a position where you got to make a decision that 50% of the people ain't going to like. There's just really not much you can do about it. But please don't ever think that we don't care. The other thing too is if your child is struggling virtual, and I know how hard it is because I have 4 kids that have been virtual since the beginning, and it is a struggle. It's a large pill to swallow. I have 1 in high school, 2 in middle school, and 1 in elementary, and we're getting it from all angles, and it's stressful, and me and my wife fight about it, and it's very difficult. And I couldn't imagine the kids that need to be face to face that are being bounced back virtual without their choice. I believe there's going to be some things that we can do as far as making it more consistent that's going to help. But other than that, please reach out. If you're struggling and you're not getting the answers from your teacher, try not to lash out at the teacher. All right, let's move up. Keep asking questions. Go to a former teacher. Go to a board member. Go to the principal. But let's try not to lash out at the people that are there to help us, because no teacher or no administrator or no purposely wants to hurt your child. We want them all to succeed. A child failing in this school, it doesn't do any good for any of us. We want you all to succeed, because then we succeed. And just please keep asking, keep moving forward, keep reaching out. Counselors, we're here to help. And like I said, just please and be patient, because it is a very difficult time. That's all I got.
Well said, Mr. Moses. Mr. Middlestat.
Yes, again, very positive meeting. Just one couple comments. One, I do agree that we tend sometimes to forget about those children that are struggling in the middle, and we got to make sure we focus our efforts there, because the difference between a B and a D is a big thing. I know failing is a big thing, but also it's a big thing from a personal standpoint, from the child's personal standpoint, that they want to do better and they're struggling. The other thing regarding finals, and I've always, whether it's a pandemic or not, I've always thought that finals should be something that helps a grade, not hurts a grade. I think that's been my philosophy on finals, and it's never been adopted, but I think it would be a good idea today if a child needs to move his grade up and wants to study the heck out of it and do a great job on a final, so be it. If they're satisfied with a B, and we understand that getting a B in a course is probably a good thing and they've learned something, then getting a C or a D on a final shouldn't drop that grade down to a C or something. So, especially the situation we're in now. So I would highly recommend, and I brought this up at the last meeting, and I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't gotten this thing concluded at this time, because finals are coming right on top of us here within a month, and we should have got that resolved earlier. But if we can take care of that, again, that's my input into the philosophy, is that finals, you should have finals, but they shouldn't hurt your grade. It should help them if they can. So that's it. Thanks, Mr. Dury.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Middlestat. So it's been a great meeting. I just want to hit on one thing from the comments, the parent comments, is just to let the parents that are out there know, all of our board attorneys work for the board. They don't technically work for the district. They work for us. They're paid by the district. The attorney that I hired back then was an attorney that has never worked for Anchor Bay ever. Did that on purpose. That was a directive to me from the board at the time. So that was not me acting alone or me acting and allowing the district to run it. It was an outside attorney. And if there's questions on that, we can go down that road another day, and she can handle herself if we need to bring her back on that particular issue, if that's going to come up next year. But as far as this meeting, I'm not taking credit for it as far as the idea. This idea came out of, talking with multiple people over the past couple of weeks. Been on this board for 2 years. There's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of back and forth, and very little of, and again, as I said earlier, pointing the finger directly at myself as well about the students. I know what I want to do, what I came on this board. And I know I've had many conversations with Ms. Berkmeyer, Mr. Green, Mr. Middlestat, everybody. You're right, Ms. Berkmeyer, you and I have talked about 2 meetings, and everybody on here has. Ms. DeWitt and Ms. Acrovetti Hendershot and Middlestat, they told me about the old curriculum meetings. Actually, Mr. Woodside's the one that brought it up to me and said, you guys should do this. It's a way to bring everybody back together. I've talked to the 2 new board members. They've said the same thing. You guys, we need to get back to what we're supposed to be about. And Mrs. Richards, I'll use your name. I apologize, but you are 100% correct. Should be from every meeting. But you're going to have from time to time hot button issues at your general business meeting. That's going to happen. Hopefully we can handle it futuristic with better professionalism amongst us all. We're all some type A personalities. That's why we run for office at times. But to have one meeting that's a curriculum meeting and talking to everybody, I thought, what a great idea. So I want to thank everybody for talking about that, everybody for their ideas and their input, because that's what led to today to having this meeting. And I think it's a better look for Anchor Bay. It's a better place that we need to be at. And the professionalism Mr. Green's shown me after what I showed him, I thank you. We're going to talk more, hopefully. And Ms. Berkmeyer and I had a conversation. So I think going forward, we just need to do a better job working together. And that's, I had one more thing, but I just forgot it. But that's what I see going forward. And next week we'll have another meeting, and hopefully we can continue this level of professionalism, and we'll go from there. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Mr. Witt. Vote by roll.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes.
Mr. Moses.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Witt.
Yes.
Betty Hendershot.
Yes.
Mr. Drew.
Yes.
Ms. Middlestate, yes.
All right. Meeting adjourned till next week's meeting on Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.